Baruchim Abayim, blessed are those who come to join us. And we thank you for being here with us. This is Pesach Sherbow, and I'm here tonight with Terry Hayes, co-host, Scotty Helton, co-host, and we have, of course, Dan, as always, doing his work, getting this posted all over the internet and on YouTube. And we have Thomas and Martha and Zechia Miparu and Emuela. It's good to have you here. And this is, well, it's Wednesday night for you guys, the 22nd of July. It's 23rd. It is, what morning? Oh, Thursday morning by us, Thursday morning. Thank you for being with us. We really appreciate you joining us on Facebook or YouTube or one of the places that broadcast this broadcast. We really, really appreciate you being here. Yeah, first what we're doing tonight, we're doing it in honor and for healing for Gavin Ben Adrian and for Donna Bat Yosef. And if anybody has anybody they want to do it to, we're doing it in honor of Tony's mom. Actually, I don't remember his mom or his grandmom. Does anybody remember or no? She's in the hospital.
His mother, yeah.
Yeah, his mother, okay. And it's also in her honor for Refuah Shlema, total healing. Interesting, someone we know has things they have to do, they go in the hospital for. And what's happened is she was told she can't come in because they don't have the machinery ready, they don't have room right now. And this is a place in Texas. One of the things about hospital visits nowadays, a lot of hospitals do not own the machinery they need to do operations and special work because of monetary restrictions and budget cuts in the hospitals. So they usually they rent the machine, actually rent it from a company, and the company brings it in with all the technicians, sets it up, and it's there at the hospital for 2 or 3 days, and they do the operations and do the things they got to do. And then it goes back to the rental company. This is a relatively new thing. It's about 6 or 7 years old, maybe 10. But it saves the hospital a lot of money in their budget, money that they can, there's no point in buying these big expensive machines and letting them sit there not being used most of the time. So it helps them give better care to people that, hire a few more nurses and do a few more things. So it's pretty good, actually. Now, look, the meeting, if you're listening if you're on Facebook, or if you're wherever you are, I can't watch all the different Facebook places with questions or anything. So if you have a question you'd like to ask during the program, either on one of the Noahide World Centers, and then Dan will pick up on it and he can pass the question along to us. Or if you go to my personal page, Pesach Sherbow, on Facebook, and you put a question in there, if you want to type it in, if you're not in the Zoom room, and you're more than welcome to hit the link there for the Zoom room. We're at B'nai Noach Connection with Israel. You can also do that. And while you're going to the websites or the Facebook pages, I hope everybody got a chance to listen to Rabbi Cherky's Cherky, his blessing on everybody for health and everything. They originally recorded it for the people in Hodu that speak English, but since it's in English, all of us can listen to it and receive the blessing. They also have it in many different languages, by the way, on Noahide World Center. A lot of the teachings and things, and also on Facebook. If you follow them, you can pick up one of the languages. You may be in a foreign country, and one of the languages there you can pick up on and get more information about the Noahides. Again, Dan started off as a teaser. Brit Olam or Brit Shalom. I forget which is the prayer book.
Brit Olam is the prayer book. Brit Shalom is the new one.
Okay.
The practical application for Noahites.
Okay, Brit Shalom. Yes, practical applications. It is a pretty direct, simple book to read with clear explanations on things. It's a behavioral guide. It's, in my opinion, this is my opinion, it's just as good as the divine code. It's just easier. And if you want some more details and go into more intricate details, you can always go to the divine code and look it up in there. But his book here is, which is now I think in 5 languages already. It helps you learn how I should act every day as a Noahide. It helps you become, as Solomon would say, a complete human being, because you're doing the commandments. You need to do the commandments that are for you and not for somebody else. It works the same with Jewish people. There's so many of those 613 that aren't for me at all. There might be 230, 250 that are for me out of the 613. Now, the word mitzvah, there's some different ways to look at this word. The way we do in Hebrew, words relate to other words, and part of the word, the mitzvah, the tzav part of it, it means like an order, but it also comes from the word sevet, which means teamwork, working together. To give teamwork better, you and me and everybody else doing teamwork. That means when we're all doing mitzvot, which is plural for mitzvah, somebody, let's say the Bet HaMikdash was in operation today. It requires certain things to be done in the Bet HaMikdash, but when the priests in the Bet HaMikdash do those mitzvahs, you get counted in on them. They're part of the teamwork, because we can't do it ourselves. You get credit for it anyway, that they're doing it. We're a team. We work together. And one of the amazing things is that until you actually declare yourself a member of the team, then you wouldn't get credit for it. But what you do get credit for, and which is an amazing thing, which I don't think I've ever mentioned before, it doesn't make any difference who you are in the world. It doesn't make any difference what you do for a living. When you do one of the things that's called a mitzvah, without even knowing you're doing it, you still get credit for it. How can this possibly be? A mitzvah is essentially bringing down the presence of God into you and this world with us here. So even if you don't know who he is and you do it, like feeding the hungry or any of the mitzvot, you don't get it for not murdering anybody. You don't get credit for that. You're just not supposed to do it. The mitzvot that you do, being kind to people, instead of at a point where you could be angry or upset with somebody, but you're still kind to them and look for the good in them. This is a mitzvah. This is being kind. You get credit for it. You've pulled the presence of God down, his essence, down to you and to the world. So you see what happens is all of us all around the world, when we're kind to somebody, we're bringing God's presence as a team down into the world. So 100 people do that, that's 100 times the power we're bringing down. We're bringing down the essence of God and what he wants down into this world. Hello, Blaine. Good to see you. It is important that we remember this, but there are people out there, and you know who they are. You talk to them every day. They don't even realize they're actually fulfilling I mean, there are those that claim, well, I'm not under the law anymore. But what they don't know is every time they do what they're supposed to do, yes, they are. They're pulling God's presence down, and they're helping the world get filled up with God's presence. And even in themselves, they're helping. So there are people who have the wrong idea what this law is. They're free from the law, and it's always like, what law are you free from? Is what I think in my head. Shira likes to ask them the question, but whether you know it or not, you're still doing it. You're still doing it. When you're kind to someone, when you treat them nice, when you don't pass on lashon hara, bad talk about somebody, whether it's true or not true, you're actually making a choice to do the right thing at that time. When you give tzedakah, any kind of tzedakah, whether it's monetary or whether it's kindness to someone or whatever it is, you're fulfilling what God wants. And it goes to your credit, but it also goes to the credit of the world. Here's one more person doing it. And as we do these things during our lifetime, we kind of fill ourselves up with this presence of God inside of us. It will change who you are if you think about it that way. It will change who you are if every time you do something, you're remembering who you're doing it for, not for you. And that's because you think it's a good idea, but there are many people that do it that way. You know what? They still get credit for it. But they do it in a very egotistical and selfish way. So the best thing to do is remember that this is something that God wants you to do anyway. So why tell God, man, I'm not under your law anymore, and then turn around and go do exactly what he wants. Now, let me explain to you that this comes from blindness. Your blindness. Everything God wants and everything all of God's presence is here with us now. We just can't see it. It's covered over with it's shrouded. It's covered over with many, many veils. And as we do the things we're supposed to do, and as we learn things, whether it's a lot or a little, it doesn't make any difference. Each time you're taking a little bit of that veil away for you, so you can just see a little bit more of what's going on. And it's an important thing to remember that when you're doing it and you're taking that veil away, you're also lifting yourself to another realm, or making it stronger what you see in where we are now today. We're in the earthly realm. We're in a very much physical, 3D, touch, sound, smell world, feel. But there's so much more out there that we don't hear and we don't see every day. Common thing. Everybody knows what a dog whistle is, right? You can blow it all you want, but you can't hear it. Well, why can't you hear it? It's not within the range you have for hearing something. It's on the high end. Elephants hear on the low end. So when they communicate with one another, it's too low, too bassy for us to be able to hear it. But if we had some way of allowing our ears to listen for the high or listen for the low, then we could hear it. But nature has made it, or God, Elohim, the side of God that's nature, has made it so we can't adjust our ears to that. Even our eyes can only see certain things in certain colors. We can't see everything. That's the way we were created. But in the spiritual realm, the realm of that is also here with us, up here, we can expand what we know and go to a different level, a higher level. And we always talk about every time you read the Torah every year, when you come around, the next time you go, you find new words, you kind of find new phrases, something jumps off the page at you. You've expanded your realm of understanding. And you can't do it like all of a sudden, because you have to have the basics and then add to it and add to it and add to it. And as you add to it, you expand what you can see, in quotation marks, of what God is and what he's created around you. So it's up to you how much you see in this realm. One of the biggest holdbacks we have is the teaching that what we see written is that's all there is. There's nothing else. It says in black and white, da, 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 and that's it. This is the biggest drawback that any person could have when they're studying the Word of God, because it isn't that way. Everything has shades that I can use the word shades. I can use the word levels, but you have to be aware that they exist, the other levels. Even if you can't communicate with them and you can't see them better, you have to know they exist. Because if you know they exist, then you can look for them as you're going through things. You're not stuck in one spot. You don't become like, well, I've read this 100 times. I don't have to read this again. I know it by heart. Okay, well, that's good. And there's nothing else. That's not so. There's always levels to learn more and more and more. I'm in a class right now that I'm participating in, because there's something, we all have questions about where we go next. Olam Haba, Gan Eden, the next world, the Garden of Eden, and all that. And I always looked at it as, okay, this is the Olam Haba, this is Garden of Eden. But it's nowhere near that. There's levels also to that, and levels of things that happen to people as they go up, as our neshama goes up and comes out of the body. Maybe in a month or two, I might do a teaching on that once I get a much better understanding. But it reminded me that you can't be dogmatic in what you've learned. You must always be prepared that there's another level. And there's something there that you don't understand, you don't see, but it's okay. That doesn't mean you're dumb or anything else. It just means you haven't prepared yourself enough to see it. That's like, how do they prepare kids for math in school? They have to start with a child has to learn his numbers before he can do anything else. Has to know how to count. The next thing they work on is adding and subtracting numbers. Then you get into multiplication and division of numbers. So you're learning each time, you're moving up a level. If somebody doesn't bother to learn how to count, how are they going to be able to add 101? They just can't do it. As you move up levels, and most of us top out maybe at algebra in high school, sometimes trigonometry and calculus, or the basics of calculus in high school, And other people go on and on and on until they become astrophysicists or whatever. But not me. I could never, I don't think my brain could handle getting to that level. And I wouldn't want to spend the time and effort to be an astrophysicist. There's people who do their job. That's fine with me. So I know what I need to know, but I have to be aware there's other levels. So whatever I speak about, if I'm going to speak about geometry or trigonometry or even multiplication and division, I have to know there's other levels also. And I'm not at the top level, and that's not the only thing that exists. There's a lot more things that exist, even though I haven't seen it yet, haven't learned it yet. I have to keep myself constantly open to the fact that that's how the world works. You know, we look at nature and how beautiful nature is. And I was watching today for a while a live African safari. They're on twice a day in South Africa. They're from different parks, and they do it twice a day, morning safari, late afternoon safari. And one of the guides said, you know, it's winter down here now, and it's cold, and everything here looks so bland. He says, if I came through here and never came back, this is my picture would be of Africa, where the animals live. He says, but just wait. In another 6 weeks, when spring starts down there, the whole place comes alive. It blossoms. All different colors, everything. This is beautiful. They have a longer rainy season than we have up here in Israel. But if someone just went there and looked at it right now, it looks sparse and dry and not good. And the water holes are drying up because they don't get rain during the winter down there. Why, I don't know. But for us here in Israel, we have the Negev, we have the wilderness, we have some deserts. But even the desert, even the Negev, when it rains during the rainy season here, becomes so beautiful, it's unbelievable. And you drive through parts of Israel and they're just sand colored and everything looks dead. And all it takes is one rain. And you come back the next day, all of a sudden, all this brown, everything was brown and didn't look good. Across the fields that looked like there's nothing there but sand and rock, all of a sudden you see a green tinge to everything. The grasses start to grow, the flowers start to grow, the trees start to blossom. And if I didn't know that this was going to happen, I'd always forever have in my mind this dry, dusty, barren-looking place. But just because I have it in my mind doesn't make it so. And so if somebody says, well, you know, when I was in Israel, it was chilly and rainy the whole time. Well, that's good for about 90 days, if we're lucky enough to get rain during that 90 days. But it's not like the picture behind me here, which is, I think, somewhere in Hawaii. The point is, you have to know that there is something else. You can't say to yourself, I don't have to do this. I'm not under the law. I'm free to do what I want. And I believe what I believe, and that's all I'm going to believe. I have faith in what I believe, and that's all I'm going to believe. Well, it just doesn't work that way. Not in the reality of God's world. I'm always saying that we're not a religion. We're walking in a reality. The reality has many shades of what it is. And we have to understand that. Why do you have to understand it as an individual? Because you got to know that what you're looking at right here now at this moment is right now here at this moment, and there's something else coming that's probably going to be better. There's a lot of people around the world now in lockdown. There's a lot of people around the world now that are even quarantined in their homes. And you know what? After 3, 4, 5 days, you start going cabin fever, stir crazy. Oh, I can't do this. I can't do that. But that's only if they're looking at what they're looking at right now. At the end of whatever your quarantine period is, or the lockdown period is, things change. There's a difference. Things open up, restaurants open up, businesses go back to being businesses, airlines start flying again, people can visit other countries again, but we know it's there. So why become in our minds locked down to how terrible it is right now? Right this moment, it's so terrible. Whoa. No, it's just something, another now you're going through, but you know that it's not forever. You know there's something different, and you shouldn't be impatient to get to it. I know some people get real aggravated about this stuff, and it's tough. I mean, especially for us, you can't invite people over on Shabbat. There's a lot of things you can't do. So, and you know, when I go out to the grocery store, I go out in early mornings and do my shopping and come back. And Shira right now is on a 14-day lockdown because she was in the States for 2 weeks with her kids and grandkids. And when she came back, they just sent her home and said, you can't leave your house for 2 weeks. And believe it or not, 3 days later, we got a call from the police double checking if they had the right phone number. And they said, by the way, somebody might come by and check on you. They're pretty serious about staying home here in Israel. You can't just flaunt it. But it's only for the 2-week period. I think they're going to change it to 10 days pretty soon. But if you don't think there's anything else more than that, where, you know, people are used to going out and taking walks and going out on picnics and going out to enjoy the outside. And they're told, you're staying home. You're not going anywhere else. If you allow this to bother you, thinking like, oh, this is forever or something, it will hurt the way you think. It will cause things in your mind to happen that don't need to happen. So always remember that there's something else there, another level there, something waiting just around the corner to happen. And we need to, that's what keeps us calm. Because if you trust God, you trust him, you know that what he's doing, in the end, everything is for the good, and you trust it. I don't say have faith, I don't say believe, I say have trust. You have to know who he is, and you have to trust him. That, okay, this is temporary, I know this. Now, some of the things we're going through now will probably end up being more than temporary for a short period of time. I got a funny feeling that face masks, as much as everybody hates them and complains about them, are going to be pretty commonplace for the next year or so. And the people that are against it aren't looking at what actually the good of it is. Now, I don't wear one in the house. I don't wear one to drive the car. I don't wear one when I'm out in the parks. I don't drive one. I don't wear one when I'm out doing things where aren't anybody, there's nobody around or just a few people around. But you go into a store, you wear one. You walk down a crowded street, you wear one. And you got to understand it's for the help of other people too. You're helping others and yourself. One of the reasons that people are being turned away from hospitals today is that certain hospitals in certain areas are becoming overloaded, totally overloaded with patients in beds. They're actually sick from the corona infection. Maybe not critically sick, thank you, Lord, but they need some hospital time. So somebody said masket or casket? Never heard that one before, Peter. It's important that we understand that nothing is permanent. You know, people say, and I remember growing up hearing this, and I remember saying it to people, there's nothing permanent in life except death and taxes. And you know what? I've learned even death is not a permanent thing. For the body, it may be, but for me, it's not. And this is a promise from God if we decide to be a complete human being. There's and I think it's in Isaiah, correct me if I'm wrong, it says, all Israel will be saved. All Israel will be saved. What does that mean? It means all Israel will make it to the next level of life. Now, is that just Jewish Israel, or is there a part of Israel that is also people that believe in the one true God, the God of Israel, and do the commandments he asks of them to do? Of course, they become part of Israel. So everybody's a part of Israel. It's like almost automatic, because God, you've accepted him as your father and your king. It's like almost automatic. And you've done it the easy way, actually, because when the time comes, we're ready to go to the next level, there's certain things that happen. We don't know all of them. We know a few of them. That if you want to go to the next level, you're going to have to do it anyway. And that's a whole nother teaching. I'll get into that. And I hate for a teaser like that, but I just want you to be thinking about understanding there's levels we do not understand or we haven't uncovered yet for ourselves. Because these are things you have to do for yourself. You have to own these things. They got to be yours, not mine, not anybody else's, yours. When you own it and you know it, and you know who God is, and you become part of his, the completion of the creation that he made by becoming a complete human being, then you become part of that also. It doesn't make any difference if you're born Jewish or not Jewish. As long as you come into that, what you guys are learning and what we're going to study a lot more as soon as everybody gets their books, how this whole thing works. It's a little complicated, but you don't have to understand the whole thing. One of the things that we have to understand something, you just have to know that there's something else there. You don't have to study it if you don't want to. You don't have to understand it, because everybody has their own levels of understanding and how much they can understand. And that's the way God created us. That's why we have guys that spend their whole day studying Torah and Gemara and Talmud, studying Zohar and studying all these books. I know, because of how God made me and how my life is going so far, I can't do that. I can't sit down and spend all day studying this stuff. And it is a whole lot of stuff. But I can do a couple, 3, 4 hours during the day. But maybe because you're so busy with things you have in life, you can only do 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening. It's still, you're doing what God wants you to do. You're taking a little bit of time and devoting it to learning. What does the learning do? It's not to have you toe the line. It's to have you have more of an insight and understanding of who God is and who what he wants from you in your life. The book I'm talking about is Brit Shalom. Hello, Daphne. It is for Noah Hyde's Brit Shalom, it's called. And it's, if you look down under where the video is on Facebook, there's a place where you can click on the order if you want. We're going to do Brit Shalom and Brit Olam in a study way. for those that want to just take a closer insight and learn a little bit more and peek through some more veils of understanding. Never think that you've gotten to, I've learned something not to say when I'm studying, especially with a rabbi or a chacham, somebody that's really wise. They'll explain something to you and they'll say, okay, what do you think? And I'd say, I understand. He says, no, you don't understand. Don't tell me you understand. You can't understand. And I realized we can't. I now know, but that's not the same as understanding. I can know something, but that's not the same as understanding it. And one of the problems that I have as a teacher, and other people have, some people will teach without really learning something in depth. They're just making blanket statements, kind of dogmatic stuff, and trying to get you to believe it. But a teacher has to be able to, once they've learned the complications and everything, and learned how to get through that curtain and pull part of that covering away so God's presence and light comes more to you as an individual, because when it comes to you as an individual, it comes more to the world. So to do this, and Cole knows this saying, and Terry and everybody else, if you know A, teach A. Don't dare try to teach B. Know A first, and then you can start teaching it. While you're learning B, you can teach your understanding on A to people. Because what will happen is you'll have to go and backtrack, and nobody likes to do that. You're going to make some mistakes, then you have to go apologize to people. Sorry, I said it. Let's go back and look at it again. And misguiding people is not what you want to do. Some people do it all the time on their teachings. Basically, people in different religions do that. And some people, unfortunately, they call themselves Noahide leaders, do the same thing, because that's all they know how to do, is to teach it in that particular manner, and to not teach you complete what you need to know. Now, one of the things it's the reason why we hooked up with Noahide World Center in Jerusalem, is to have a place that is qualified and is a place that has the backing of the chief rabbis of Israel, the prime ministers of Israel, the Knesset members of Israel, many of the city chief rabbis in Israel. They back these things because they acknowledge the work that Rabbi Cherky is doing, and things that he's teaching us they're all Torah quality. In other words, they don't go against anything in Torah. And they're exactly what needs to be taught. So I spent quite a few years trying to get connected with a place like this, and they have affirmed, I guess. It's like when they give us a stamp of approval, what comes with it is the approval of the chief rabbis, the approval of all these things. Not some rabbi somewhere. We're talking about the chief rabbis in Jerusalem. We're talking about people that have been doing this work for 20 years minimum. And when one of our teachers gets certified, and Terry and Scotty are both certified teachers, that comes with the stamp of approval of Jerusalem, the stamp of approval of the chief rabbis. And this is important for you to know, because there's many, many Noahide places out there. Some of them good, some of them not so good. I hate to say it that way, but that's the way I got to do it. And so you need to make sure that you are connected with the people that have the approval and are connected to Jerusalem. In Judaism itself, in the family, we have Jews that are not connected to Jerusalem. We have Jews that do different levels of doing the mitzvah. We have some Jews that don't do it at all. They don't do anything. But because they're born, the family was born into God's service, they have a little bit of an out because they came into Israel being born in. You guys, and actually it's a much higher level, to be honest with you, you chose to become part of God's Israel. You're making a choice. You've been there, done that. You've looked at it. You know the truth of other religions, because I always want to talk about positives, so I'll say the truth of other religions. And you know that the real truth is where you ended up. And this is an important point. It's very important. I myself am what is called a Baal Tshuva. I came back to the family. And coming back to the family, I made an actual choice. I'm done with the physical world in the way of secularism, which is also a religion, in my eyes. And I decided to join the family in their things. 1 second, Peter. It's not, just click on the picture. It should take you right to the place to order it. And there's a promo code at the top. It gives you a 10% discount up until a certain date. I don't know which date. Anyway, God looks at someone like me and other people that have chosen to come in on like a higher level, if you want to call it that, than someone who was just born into it and they grew it right from the get-go. They were what we call frum. They were just brought up doing mitzvot. They just were taught this is what you're supposed to do and here's how you do it. And they've never had to look at anything else. Us in this group here, Thomas, when I looked up, it almost looked like he had a mask on. All of us in the group here have chosen to be where we are. It was our choice. We thought about it. We studied about it. We learned about it. Now, how good do you think that makes Hashem feel? Wow. We looked for him, we found him, and we decided he is the one true. And that's the only way to go. And it says, I'm not sure if it's Zechariah or not. I should have something up here so I could Google real quick. He says that those who come in will be treated higher than some of those that are born family. That's a pretty astonishing statement. The very fact that you've made this choice to walk with God, no matter where you were before, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done in your life, you've got repentance. You're clear. You're good. So that's the way it works. And it's pretty nice to know, because you've done it by making the choice, and you've done it by doing what he wants done, and you have decided to go with his word, which is complete human being. You're a complete human being. You fear God, which you learn more and more and more how to do that as we go along, but you also you also do this. Man, how do you say it? You're doing the commandments he wants you to do. You don't have to do more than that. Sometimes people do more, but you don't have to do more than that. And you don't have to worry about the ones you don't do that are not designed for you to do. Okay? It's something we have to learn, each of us. Go ahead, Terry.
We're obligated to our duty. And one of the things that we need to learn is to learn what our duty is. Because so many, coming out, and I mean, I'm guilty as well. When I first came out, you're looking everywhere. You're not focused yet, and so you've got to learn to pull that vision in and discover what our duty is before the King. And that's something that I know I've been trying to concentrate on. I'm not trying to concentrate on anything other than my duty. Our duty is the 7 laws and their details. And that is a lot of cake to eat.
You're right, it is. It becomes a little bit tough to do. And you have to have some kind of commitment there. You're making a commitment to God. And those of you that have taken the Noahide pledge, we have 2. There's the self-pledge, which more or less, that is the pledge that you make to yourself and God, not to anybody else. Then when you take the Noahide pledge in front of witnesses, again, it's between you and God. But you have the vow you're making is now witnessed by 3 witnesses. 3 witnesses who are of Israel. And when that happens, you've made a vow. You've come under God's rule. You've made a promise to him. See, this is one of the things when people go for conversion, they don't understand. Many people don't understand the beginning. When the judges ask you, are you willing to take on the yoke of Torah? And why would you? But at the end of your interview, and they say, okay, we're going to witness that you have become a Jew. They're putting their selves, their souls on the line for you, because they're saying, this person has appeared credible enough to me as an individual that I agree with allowing them to enter. Once you have 3 signatures, those 3 people, they are responsible for who you are. Now, you may never see them again. You might forget their names, but God doesn't forget. When I sign on the Noahide pledges for people, I don't know a lot of them. I do know, but I don't know a lot of them. There's quite a few people doing it today. And Rabbi Goldberg asked me to sit in as one of the judges, and I do it. And why do I take after a person says this pledge, it doesn't commit themselves to anybody but God. This is between the person and God. And why do I put my signature on there? Because Rabbi Goldberg knows the people. There's been interaction between people. But the hardest one to do is the conversion one. Because the people are taking on this vow to take on the yoke of Torah. That's pretty serious business. It's the most complicated way to have a relationship with the God of Israel, especially when you can do it as a Noahide. It may make you feel better, but it doesn't earn you anything in his eyes. He says, okay, you want to be a Jew? Sit in front of 3 judges, take your courses, do what you need to do, and let them talk to you. You want to be a Noahide, all you have to do is declare with all your heart. You don't have to know anything to begin with. If you just know God is God and this is the truth, and this is what I want, you can declare, but you're making a vow to God. 6 months later, you can't say to yourself, I think I'll go back being a Protestant. Or I'm going to go do Buddha Yuda or whatever other religion you decide to go after. Because what you're doing, in a sense, is breaking your relationship that you established with God. Nobody but you. And when you do that, you got to think of it, if there may be any consequences. But once you declare yourself, if you declare yourself a Noahide, you don't just say, okay, God, I'm a Noahide now. That's fine. He's listening. But then if you don't follow the way that it's supposed to be followed, you're making a mistake. You're missing the mark. People think that, I used to teach in towns across America, and one of the first things I always ask you is what church you belong to. What church you belong to. What congregation you belong to. And I've heard people say, well, I'm with this church in Dallas or in Minnesota or wherever it is. And then the next time I see them, there was some other church. There was some other Messianic congregation, just jumping around from place to place. With God, you can't do that. Once you join his congregation, you're there. There is no other place to jump to if you want to keep your connection with God. You can't do it by your opinion. You can't do it by what you think is right, because you've made a commitment to God. You're going to do what he thinks is right. And when you make that commitment to God to do what he thinks is right, then you have to learn. Now, it doesn't have to be a whole lot of learning. You don't have to sit every day and study for 4 hours. It can be 15 minutes a day. It can be 20 minutes a day, or 15 in the morning and 15 in the evening. But you need to learn what you need to learn, because you made a promise to somebody. You made a promise to God that this is what you want. And you're connecting yourself and your life with him. So you need to know what you got to do. You can't just say, okay, I'm now this, and continue on from there. Go ahead, Terry.
Can I go through the pledge a little bit and share what you're talking about? Okay, here's the pledge that we took before the baked in. Listen to the words that we said to the creator of the universe. And we've come from religions who really don't think about what they're saying, think about what they're believing, or we don't put the importance. But when we make the like Rabbi is saying, this is a vow before God. And one of the mitzvahs of the Torah is whatever comes out of a man's mouth, he shall do. It's very, very important that Hashem holds us to our words. And so the very first line, I pledge my allegiance to Hashem, God of Israel, creator of the King of the universe. Think about that. If you go back and you begin to follow other powers, other deities, you've just vowed that your allegiance is only to Hashem, the God of Israel, creator of the universe. And if you go back into idolatry, because it's easier or whatever, just think about this. You've just lied to the creator, because you just said you pledge your allegiance to him and him alone. Then it says, I pledge my allegiance to Hashem, God, Israel, King of the universe, and to his Torah. We pledge not to any religion on the earth. We pledge to his Torah, his instructions only. I will adhere to the 7 laws of Noah. Now we're telling God, this is what we're going to do as part of our vow. We're going to adhere to the 7 laws of Noah. And I further pledge to continue to uphold these laws in all of their details, according to the oral law of Moshe, under the guidance of the rabbis. That's pretty stout. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, when I first pledged it, I didn't think about it in these terms. I mean, because I already knew in my heart where I was at. But when this right here is a full lesson just in itself, just what this pledge is saying and what it means. And if you've taken the pledge and if you have a copy of it, sit down, maybe even use it in prayer and maybe personal prayer time to Hashem. Talk to him about your allegiance to him, adherence to his Torah, which, is the 7 laws for us. So I just what I want to bring about, because, what Rabbi is talking about is this is strong. I pledge my allegiance to Hashem, God of Israel, King of the universe. We can't, this just like converting to become a Jew, in which I almost did myself. I stayed for 7 years, and there's no going back. If you said this before a Beit Din, there's no going back, even for us, in my opinion.
You got a good opinion. It's okay. That's exactly the way it is. I mean, look, we have gotten very lax at keeping promises as human beings. We make, okay, we're not going to the zoo today, but I'll take you on Thursday. I promise you. On Thursday, it's, well, I can't make it today. I promise you'll do it next week. We become very lax at keeping our word. Well, let me tell you, your word to God, to Hashem, the King of kings, the ruler of the world and everything, that you're making a promise to him. And we forget sometimes that he has within his power to do what he wants with us as individuals. And we thank him that he doesn't just do whatever he wants, that he gives us time after time a chance and a chance again and a chance again. Even if you turn your back and walk away from him, he gives you unlimited and infinite, because he's infinite, chances to turn around and come back. But if you don't feel embarrassed or guilty by walking away from the Creator, he who created everything that you're a part of anyway, there's a part of him in you. But when I say there's a part of him in you, I mean the essence, because all of you is in him, and he's a part of you too, in your flesh and in everything. He's a part of everything. The rock, the mountains behind Terry, the palm trees behind me. He exists in everything. And there's no way you can walk away from him once you understand this. You just can't walk away from him. You can say you're doing it. David says, even though I'm in Sheol, in the lowest place I can go, even though I put myself in human hell, God's right there with him. He knows that. He knows it. It's not like I think he's with me, or it's some words he's running off. He knows wherever he goes, he can't get away from God. He sees everything and knows everything. And we, as human beings, we may hide from other human beings when we do something, but you can't hide from God. He's there with you all the time, seeing exactly what you do. So it's really, really important that you realize this. And once you make an actual commitment to him, it's a done deal. You've said to him, yes, I've done it. Here I am. I am there. So when you say you're there, you got to keep your promise. Your word is important. So, hello, Angelica. Good to see you. It's important that that we do these things and we understand what's going on. So I hope every time I look at my Facebook page, it's frozen. So I'm hoping it's not doing that for the other people that are listening. So the once you made the promise, you made the promise. That's it. You made the promise. Dan, you have something you want to contribute here?
Oops, sorry, not so much myself, but our friend Veronica from Washington State, she's asking, well, what happens if you break a vow?
To God?
Well, she didn't clarify just what happens if you break a vow.
Well,
I mean, from my understanding too, I mean, we bind ourselves. Like the Hebrew people use that phrase "bli neder," right? Often.
Right.
A lot of people of the 70 nations have no concept of that bli neder. And even when we make a vow to other people, people expect us to hold ourselves to it. And a lot of times people make vows that are, well, if I can get to it, I'll do it, right? But they don't mean that I'll do it. And then some people are disappointed. So there's always turmoil around vows. But she's asking, what happens if you break a vow? I mean, before Hashem, I mean, yeah, we wouldn't want heaven to hold us accountable, God willing, and that's why I think a lot of rabbis are strict about us not making vows. But even not before heaven, we make vows too flippantly amongst other people. Like, sure, yeah, I'll do that for you, and then people expect it to be done, and we commit ourselves. And then there's a lot of people that are prone to asking, and then we feel guilty because we didn't help. But what happens when we break a vow? There's intertwined drama, I'm sure. But what have you got to say on breaking a vow for Veronica?
Yeah, this is okay. Here's the way we look at it. First of all, when you tell something you're going to do something, you made a vow. You've already told him you're going to do it. You've given your word. That's a vow. Maybe you didn't swear a vow, maybe you didn't do anything, but you told somebody you're going to do something. So we're very careful about that. And we use the phrase bli neder. In other words, bli neder means without making a vow. In other words, yeah, if I can do it, I'll do it, but I can't tell you that I'm vowing to you that I'm going to do it. Or if you could say, let's meet next week for a get together or a meal, we'll say Bezrat Hashem. With the help of God, we'll do it. But we don't make a vow to do it. And most people don't realize you can make a vow without saying anything. Let's say that you do something for somebody 3 times.
Habitually, yeah.
Habitually. That's the same as making a vow. I'm very careful about that when we help out people, and sometimes people need money or sometimes they need something done. And I always add a phrase to what I do. Let's say if I'm giving a family money, they need it to pay a bill or something. And I'll say, I can do this right now. I don't know that I can do it all the time. Right up front, I tell them. So there's no expectation of doing it more than the once. And if I give it to them 3 times, every time I tell them, okay, this is what I can do right now. I can't, what I always do is I never, ever give them the same amount of money for the household every time. Because if you give them the same amount 3 times in a row, that's like, I promise you I'm going to give you that amount every time I give you. Mm-hmm. So you build people's expectations, and then you don't do it, then they feel disappointed. And then they say to themselves, well, I usually get 500 shekel instead of this time I only got 400. And when that happens, you have disappointed them and caused them to be in distress. Right. Now, think about the Creator. Where's children? Think about your own children or growing up in the house you grew up in. Yeah, Dad, I'll cut the grass every week. And then you don't do it for 3 weeks. What have you just done? Not only did you disappoint your father, and he's surely going to say something about it, he might even get a little vocal about it. if your mom says, okay, every time you go out in the morning, take the trash out, and you say, okay, every time I go out in the morning, I'll take the trash. And then you don't do it one morning, you don't do it another morning. Of course, nobody's going to leave it in the house. Somebody's going to take it out. But you gave your word you were going to do something. And by breaking your word, you've caused trouble in somebody else. Think about when you go to the Creator, the one who is, I don't know what word to use here. You know, it takes 3 to make a new life on this earth. Not 2, it takes 3. Every single person that's born has a mother, a father, and God involved in the process. That means everyone that's born was born because God wanted you to be born. It's that simple. He wanted you to be born to do something for him. He needs you to do a specific thing. Now, when you disappoint God, he takes it a little seriously. And I know how he treats me sometimes when I disappoint him. And sometimes it's a physical thing, and sometimes it's an embarrassment thing. I may have told this story before, but when we come out of our apartment, I turn right, then turn right again and go down some stairs, and I have a parking space down there. And people park in my parking space and my car's not there. They block me in because they want to go run up to somebody's apartment or somebody's house and do something around here. And I didn't allow it to anger me, but one day I got so angry about it. And Shira and I were walking down towards the car, and I was just, wow, was I angry. And I said some things I shouldn't have said. And as I hit the first step, I tripped. And I started falling down the stairs. And fortunately, I grabbed the handrail and swung myself around. But in the process of doing that, my head hit the stone. My glasses got scratched.
Oh.
And I stood up and said, I apologize for what I did. It was like instant, hey, you want to use that anger? You want to use that energy in a negative way? Here's some negative energy. There's a book by Rabbi Shalom Arush that talks about that. And I can't forget the name of the book right now, but it's maybe somebody will remember out there. But everything that happens to you has a meaning. And you're supposed to look for the meaning why it happened. Even the littlest thing, you knocked the glass off onto the floor and it broke. Now, maybe that time it didn't have a meaning. Maybe that was just carelessness. But you always look to see what happened just before that happened. Did I do something that got God a little upset and he's sending me a message? Breaking a vow to anybody is bad enough. Your word is who you are. That's part of who you are. Breaking your word to God is a big deal. Go ahead.
Well, Veronica's clarifying. She's asking specifically about a pledge or a vow, and she's saying, well, like the Noahide World Center pledge. It's a personal pledge and a pledge that many have taken, and even some may still take. But she's wondering about, what are the ramifications of breaking that vow, intentionally or not? I mean, I know that Teshuvah, covers a lot of issues. But in my experience, just like you're mentioning, in my experience, if we do certain things, there's ramifications. And breaking vows, can have degrees of ramification. And I know that the whole mitzvah system, about perhaps having a place in the world to come, and I know that that's a concern for a lot of people, especially those that come out of Christianity. Right. I just find a personal release in the sense that I believe Hashem owns it all anyways. He owns it all anyways, and he is able to separate what needs to be separated from anything so that what is pure remains. That's the way my mindset, looks at it. And if there's a thing in me that needs to come out and it doesn't come out here, Hashem is able to cope with it on the other side in the world to come. And if we have a portion, like it's the phrase, a portion in the world to come, we may only have a portion, and a portion of us may just be rectified in a way that we don't enjoy. But to put it in perspective, that's what she's asking about, a pledge or a vow specifically, because I know there's serious ramifications. You're talking about something that, just off the cuff, it happened to me, I got angry, and then this happened, and then you quickly repented, and that's amazing. I find that that's a way of true righteous people. That's the way you function. We're only human. If you make a mistake, get back on the horse, and I don't know, how can you elaborate on that? And I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, let's start with your beginning comment here. I understand it was said, what if you break the pledge that you take at Noahide World Center? Well, guess what? People like to put things together that don't belong together. All the Noahide World Center does is give you a place to come, a court, to declare yourself. But you're not making the pledge to Noahide World Center. We're simply witnessing that you made the pledge. You can't come back later and say, no, I didn't make this pledge, or no, I really didn't mean it. And this is, you're taking this pledge and giving it to God. The only thing it does for you by having it done in front of a Bet Din, a sitting of three judges, of three rabbis, is that they're giving, not only does God know that you have vowed to him, but Israel also knows. It's nice to walk around saying, I'm a Noahide and I'm this and I'm that. But if nobody knows but you, or because you declare it to some people in a group or something, it doesn't mean much. You haven't made the big step. And when you declare it to God, which you can do, there's a self-declaration on there to get you started, so you can realize you're making a commitment to God, not to anybody else. And then when you do it in a Bet Din in the proper manner, you have just learned, or Israel has just learned, wow, this person is now a part of who we are. They're part of the family. They're part of the group of people and can be recognized as that. Now, why is this important? It's important because there's going to come a time where Israel may open its borders and say, okay, people can come and emigrate to Israel and live here that are not Jewish. And who are the people they're going to allow to do that? Those who've declared their allegiance with the God of Israel in a real way. We don't believe somebody just because they come up and say, hey, I'm really hooked up to the God of Israel and I just want to come be with you guys. What does that mean? My goodness, when we were in high school, we went through cliques like that. When we were in middle school, here we're getting real serious. Just because somebody says something and they're not willing to make a commitment, and well, guess what? It's just, it don't work. And people have been trying to do it since after Mount Sinai. And they've been trying to do it. They tried to do it for years. They tried to do it after the 40 years in the desert. We went into Israel, and God said, don't make any compromises with anybody in there. They had this land, and they did nothing but desecrate what I wanted. So now it's yours. He deeded us the land of Israel. It's all the contracts right there in the Torah, if you read it, for black and white, so everybody will know for all generations what it is. I mean, there's people that deny it, that's true, but let's get back to the vow. People A lot of people don't like getting involved with this kind of thing is, well, I'm not going to commit to any group of people. Well, okay, commit to yourself and God and see how it works out. See what happens if and when the time comes that Israel opens its borders to let people come live there. See what happens when the time of the Mashiach comes and he's telling everybody, you have to make the commitment. You have to know who God is. And you have to declare it. If you can't declare something publicly in front of people, there's only two problems. Really, your heart isn't, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. Your heart isn't in it, or your ego is blocking you. Nobody's going to control me. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. Nobody's going to tell me I have to do this or do that. But one of the things you leave behind when you become a Noahide is, yes, I'm going to do what God says. I'm going to do the things that he wants me to do. And I'm going to do it with the intent that it's done the way he wants it done, not the way I want to do it. The I starts to look, I've been talking to people about ego for 22 years. And people tell me, yeah, I understand. I have to give up my ego and I have to take the I out of things. And then the next week, well, I don't know if that's right. And I don't think that's right. And I interpret it this way. And here it's right back. They don't even understand that they're right back where they were 2 weeks before. It's why, look, we just started this week the book of Deuteronomy, Devarim, the fifth book of the 5 books of Moses. What is it? If anybody doesn't know, here's what it is. It's the last 37 days of Moses' life. He knows when he finishes with this, he's going to die. Israel doesn't know it, but he knows it because God has told him. So he says some things at the beginning and at the end of the Devarim, which are actually his. And every other place in the Bible, it says, and God told Moshe to say to Israel. In Devarim, the beginning and end belong to Moshe himself. He's able to say some things himself. But the whole part of the recounting and doing things, he humbled himself so much and gave of him so much to God that the essence of God could actually come in and control his voice box. And everybody's looking at Moses speaking. Truly, it was God speaking through him. Never happened before. Hasn't happened since then. Because that's who Moses was. He could cancel himself out so much that God could actually, with his essence, come down and use him to speak to people. Not say to Moses, okay, I'm going to tell you this, and I want you to go tell everybody else. This was God speaking directly. This is the book of Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy. And it's an important thing to know. You know, look, the whole Bible could have been brought down to 3 books if it was only about the Jewish people. But it's about the world. It's about the whole world knowing who God is and his commandments and what he wants them to do. And you need to be part of the book. Yes, there you go. Universal Garden of Emunah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Richard. And it's available on Amazon. And it's a good book. It's a nice book to have around the house. It's a comforting book to read sometimes. Thank you for that information. So the people that resist it are people that want to go their own way, start their own groups and teach their own stuff. They haven't joined yet. They've said to God, oh, I'm a Noahide, and I'm this and I'm that, but they haven't joined yet. There's a joining that has to happen. How do we see this? It happened right at the foot of Mount Sinai. When all those people showed up with Moses, God said to Moses, bring Israel in front of me in 3 days. Israel, not the Israelites, all the Israeli people. He said Israel, one unit. 3 million people. He called them one unit. And you know what? You know who else was there? You guys know that. The people that left, the Egyptians that left Egypt, the necromancers and the scientists and all the people that wanted to hook themselves up with the God of Israel. And he called them Israel because they were standing in front of him at Mount Sinai. And that's what he wants from all of us, to be part of the one. The one. As a team. Diversity he wants from everybody, or he wouldn't have made so many different kinds of people. He wants diversity as part of what he wants. But what he wants us to come together as one. And that's why one of the biggest things you can do is to be kind to people, whoever they are. Because when you're unkind to them, you're actually unkind to God. Because that person was created in God's image just like you. And you're a part of that person because you're a part of God. And that person is a part of God. We talked about not being able to see things at the beginning. God has veiled himself so much in this world that we can't see it. We think we're God. We think what we think is important. What we think is going to change the world. We think what we do is going to be the most important thing. But you know what? It's not. We think if we do all these good things and we do them with the idea that we're doing good things. Oh, look, what a good deed I did. Put another mark up for me for my reward in heaven. Like it's some kind of investment or something. Guess what? Somebody can do 1 and you can do 100, but you're not going to get a bigger house on the other side. You're not going to get a beachfront property on the other side. There's no such thing as that kind of reward. You're not earning anything. You're doing it because you love God. And you're going to go into the next level of life, and you fulfilled what he wanted you to do in this physical life. Because once we get to the other side, we're done doing stuff. We're done. Without a body, you can't do anything. That's why we have this life here. That's why we have the soul, which is divided up between the animal soul, the spirit, and the godly soul. And I put the spirit in between the two because that's your connection point. That's the place where you can go back and forth between and allow communication between God and your animal soul, the godly soul. Once we go into the ground to become worm food, we can't do anything more for God. We can't do another mitzvah. We're just done doing mitzvot. We go to the other side, we're going to learn a whole lot of things and a lot more things. So it's important we understand that. I'm going to throw in something else political here. Anybody, hey Scotty, anybody that says, anybody that doesn't say lives matter is going against God's word. The minute they put a color in front of it, they're causing division, disunity, and bigotry. It's just that simple. Scotty, you want to step in?
I just wanted to ask, can you hear me okay?
Fine.
I just wanted to ask you a question. You mentioned not doing it for profit or things. What part does motive have in our lives for doing a mitzvah for God?
Oh, what a great question. Motive, you used the word motive, we use the word intent. The intent behind, or the motive behind what you do for God plays a huge part of it. Let's go back to the temple, holy temple, and let's go back to the sacrificial days. I just did something. Everybody says, oh my goodness, look what that guy did. oh, he's just so bad with what he did, and it's not good what he did. And I say to myself, whoops, everybody caught me, and I'm going to have to do something now. So I'm going to go put my money together and buy the biggest, fattest sheep I can buy and go offer it up as a repentance offering before God. And I do it. And I go up there and I say the prayers that the Levites tell me to say, and the Kohanim splash the blood all over the altar. And hey, wow. And you come out, and say, boy, good job, Pesach. Oh, wow, that was great. You repented before God, and look at that beautiful sheep you brought. But when I was standing there doing it, if I'm doing it just so people see me to do it, I did everything in vain. It doesn't count one bit of good for me, if that's the reason I did it. If you're doing something to earn honor and respect in the eyes of human beings, and that's the only reason you're doing it, there's no credit before God for it. Motive, intent is a very important thing. And you can't hide from him your motive. He knows what it is when you're up there. And you think you're fooling the people looking at you and all your neighbors and all your buddies. But guess what? Doesn't do you one bit of good other than your buddies and your neighbors say, what a good guy this is. So if you give money even to charity, and you know you're going to get your name mentioned in a flyer or in a name on a wall or something like that, if that's your motive for doing it, oh, you can do it all you want. They'll take your money. But it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't earn you anything. It doesn't give you anything. Because you have, so to speak, desecrated or done something to take God's name in vain. So intention is very important. Look, we are right now in, I think it's the 2nd of Av, or maybe the 3rd, let me see. The month of Av. This is the 2nd of the month of Av. Av means father. We call it Menachem Av, or the father that gives us mercy. The month of Av is a terrible, the first 9 days are terrible for us Jews. It's also terrible for the world. Why do I say that? The 9th of Av, which is on the 17th of Tammuz, which is almost 40 days ago, 31 days ago, something like that, 32, was when the day the Romans breached the walls of Jerusalem. The 9th of Av is when they set the torch to it and destroyed the Holy Temple. Now, that was a terrible thing to happen. Our Bet HaMikdash, the Holy of Holies, was destroyed by these people. And it wasn't the first time, it was the second time. Because about 500 years earlier, on the same day, it happened. Now, I'm not going to Google it and read the whole list of stuff now. But if you go Google all the things in history that happened on that date, you're going to be absolutely astounded. First World War started. The declaration of war for the Second World War started. And you go back in history, and there's a whole list of things on that same exact date happened. So it's not just bad for the Jews. Actually, in 1492, when Columbus went to sail the ocean blue, on the 9th of Av, the Jews were kicked out of Spain. They were kicked out of England on the 9th of Av in a different year. They were kicked out of France on the 9th of Av on a different year.
And the Holocaust.
Yep, the Holocaust also. The first trainload of Jews going to the ovens was on the 9th of Av. I forget what year it was, 42, I think, but I don't remember. Good, yeah, good for remembering that, Terry. This is a month where we have the first 9 days of this month, we call a period of mourning. So remember what happened. And we go by certain rules, the mourning rules, how you mourn for someone. And in our case, you sit on low chairs, You don't change your clothes every day. You don't get a haircut. You don't eat meat. There's a whole lot of list of customs we do for the mourning period. But we are told that and then the 9th of Av is a fast day, 25-hour fast, and we go to our house of prayer, to the shul. We sit on the floor and we read Lamentations, which is a terrible, I hate reading it, but I read it. I read it a couple times a year. And we also do prayers, special prayers, and special asking for forgiveness. Because why does the 9th of Av exist at all? Because of us, because of people. The 9th of Av exists because we were unkind to one another. The second temple was destroyed, and we were told by God for baseless hatred. And he was so angry about it. Look, like if he was a punishing, really, truly punishing, judgmental person, or God, he would have destroyed us, not the house of worship that we worship him in. But he took his anger not on us, but he destroyed the temple, and he scattered us around the world. Now, I'm going to say something. That, of course, that was part of his plan to get the word out to the rest of the world. But it's also to show the world he's really not a punishing God. He never does what he really could do to punish us. He always gives us another chance. And that's what's happening in the world today. That's why what's happening today, the waking up amongst the non-Jewish population, that he is the one true creator, is part of the fulfillment of prophecy, that one day all the world, he will be king of all the world. He will be king. He'll control the whole world. And we will all turn to him. We're all going to speak the holy language. We're all going to pray to him as one unit. On that day, his name will be one. Period. Because we're the ones that do the completion of making him one. It's up to us. And there's an awakening happening in the world that has never happened in history. There have been movements all through history, Noahide movements. The last one was back in the mid or late 1960s, I believe, with Wendell Jones and Jim Long and Sam Peake and some other people. I don't remember everybody. Bush, I think it was it Jim Bush, or I can't remember. But anyway, they rose up, and all of a sudden they kind of disappeared. There wasn't enough momentum. The world wasn't ready. Who's the world? You guys weren't ready. Now the world is ready, and it kind of took the Jews by surprise. Because we were so used to you not being ready, and so used to the things that the Gentiles did to the Jews over the millennia, that we kind of turned away from the Gentiles. We took care of ourselves. We huddled up together and hunkered down, waiting for the time like this. But in the meantime, a lot of us forgot that there was going to be a time like this. Now, what's happening is a two-part thing, and it's amazing. God is waking up the Gentiles so they become righteous of the nations. But also at Noahide World Center, you guys probably don't know this, but Rabbi Shirky, and he recruits Israelis. Doesn't make any difference if they're secular. Doesn't make any difference if they're Haredi or Chabad. And he's teaching them all about the Noahide movement. He's recruiting them to help turn their eyes outward to you guys. There's a class that happens once a week with him. There's 30, 40 people in it. They paid for the course. It's not a free course. They paid a good money to take this course. And he is teaching them how to deal with what's happening in the world today with the people who are not Jewish. And a lot of them want to get on board so much to help out. It's amazing. And again, I'm going to tell you, they're paying for this privilege to learn this stuff. He's just not doing it for free, because lots of times people get something for free, they don't pay attention to it after they learn it. So you have Jews all over Israel paying to take this course. And it's amazing. And I go to the course, and I've taught a couple of times in the course. And it's really, really, I love it. It just amazes me. Dan, you had something?
Well, that's a beautiful point you brought up. I mean, let's face it, rabbinic ordination, I mean, there's many specialities, almost like medicine. In medicine, you see people that are neurologists, people that are podiatrists, people that are gynecologists, people that are heart specialists. A lot of rabbis focus on specialities, and being Noahide or focusing on the speciality of Noahide, there are a lot of rabbis, and I know even Angelica, who's in the crowd with you guys on the Zoom room, can attest. She's talked with rabbis in the Lower Mainland near me in Vancouver, Canada, and some of them will be honest, and they'll say, "Hey, I know what it is, and I know the 7, but I'm just not trained in this specialty, so I'm not prepared to do this, that, and the other thing." And they're honest about it. And let's face it, and unless they're raised up like you're mentioning, it's up to those Noahides in their area to build their own communities and seek that rabbinical leadership, because I believe that's how the Torah describes it. Many will grab hold of the hem of the garment, and when you did the numbers, you know how it works. I just see it as 2,800 people, per. And just do the numbers. How many people are in Israel? How many people are rabbis? How many people are rabbis that can handle Noahides? Just work the numbers back, and then how many people are in the world? Think about it. I'm so honored to be connected with the Noahide World Center, and the sheer fact that they're raising up learned rabbis and people that can teach it and disseminate the Torah the way it was intended. Because if not, we're left out on our own, and we know, especially those that have come out of Christian ministry or anything like that, there's too many forks and branches where everybody's running on their own interpretation and nobody wants to get it wrong. I think you're way onto something real big there.
Yep, you're exactly right. That happens too many times, but it happens only because that's the way that the Gentiles were brought up within the religions they were in, and it's important. It's so important for the Jews to learn to turn their face outwards now. We don't have to hunker down together. We have to go out and help people in the world. But sometimes you'll walk up to somebody and you're going to surprise the heck out of them. And you go to a show and walk in and think you're going to be automatically welcomed. It's just not going to happen. Because they're so used to protecting themselves. And today they're protecting themselves even more from the imposters, the messianic people that come blatantly saying, I'm going to make you a completed Jew. Oh yeah, hallelujah. Look, I'm not trying to make fun of anybody.
People but sales. You know how when a sale is slippery, right? Right?
Yeah,
You were in the sales industry for a lot of years, and you know that when you closed a deal with a tangible item, there was an agreement, right? And something was formed, and hands were shook, and an agreement was made. But you must have seen in your career, you must have seen a lot of slippery salespeople that could just silver-tongued devil slide it across. And I see the Messianic movement as just slippery in that regard.
Yeah, it is. They also prey on Jews who are ignorant, that just don't know any better. I'm not saying ignorant in a bad way. They just don't know. Look, I spent a lot of years being a Reformed Jew saying them black-hatted guys ain't going to tell me how to live my life. But because I was ignorant, I didn't realize that what they were teaching was the
chain.
It was exactly the way it's supposed to be from Torah. I never bothered to learn it. but this I was taught in Reform Judaism. I'm so thankful to God that my eyes and heart were opened up, and I've come out the way I have.
Amen. A lot of years, no doubt.
Oh, yeah. So you guys that are now waking up and starting to feel the ruach, the spiritual part of you in you. In other words, you have the animal soul. You've lived your whole life with that. You've never had the connection with God, even though, you never recognized it. But the minute that you start looking for it, what comes alive in you, and it's something between the two, between the animal soul and the godly soul, called the ruach, which is the connector. And the animal soul, once you make that connection, it gives the godly part of you the chance to work with the animal part of you, no matter how much the animal part of you don't want it to happen. So no matter how much your ego says, "Get the heck out of here. I don't want you here."
And Pesach, I've heard it best explained by Terry Hayes. Believe it or not, he's shared it so well out of Genesis and the question of Cain. Yeah, and so just beautiful stuff.
Yeah, since you brought that up, I'm going to just put in here I'm going to take time to do a little bit of promo work. and I will get done in the next week, and we'll have links out so that you can come. The links will take you to a page on Torah for the Nation's website where you'll be able to see all Facebook and YouTube and all the places where you can connect to and go see, such as Terry Hayes has a video blog. Is that what you call it? Video Immunotrek.
Yeah, it's an extension of my written blog. It's
right.
It's Immunotrek is my blog, and it is also my YouTube channel.
Yeah, and everything's gonna be listed on this page so that you have one place to go for resources and you connect to all these things. You and Scotty are doing also the YouTube videos, the teaching videos.
The
Odyssey.
Sacred Odyssey video cast.
Right. And Scotty now is doing some 3 and 4 minute teachings every day.
Wonderful stuff.
Yes, and we're going to get them up on our YouTube channel for Torah for the Nations so that you can go back and go over them. There'll be the links to Noahide World Center and all the other links that you need so that we work together as a group, and you don't have to hunt by accident or come across something. Look, everybody out there is trying to do good. Let's start with that. But I spent years looking for what I felt was, and I'm going to use it this way, a legitimate connection to the Noahides and God and Jews. And it took me years to find Noahide World Center. And I went through a lot and was interviewed with them. And I went up to Jerusalem a couple of times to meet with Rabbi Goldberg. And he brought me some questions that Rabbi Shirky wanted to ask me. I never had a chance to meet Rabbi Shirky personally, just on YouTube. Just on Zoom Room, because everything is going on in the world. But the one thing that I personally don't want to be guilty in front of God doing is bringing somebody down a wrong path. And especially doing it because it's my opinion that I wanted to find something, a connection that was rock solid. It can't be more solid than a direct connection to Jerusalem. It can't be more rock solid than having an organization that is proved by the chief rabbis of Israel. It can't be more rock solid than that. Now, you can go around and find something you feel like you agree with everywhere else. And most of these other groups have a rabbi in Florida, or a rabbi over in Texas, or a rabbi over someplace else that is behind them. And it does teaching for them. And it's good. They're good. Most of them are good teachings. But to me, that's, and this is my opinion now. I'm not accusing anything of anybody. or anybody of anything is what I should say. It tastes to me like denominationalism. God wants us to be one unit, one together before him. Well, you can't do it if you got 18 different groups doing different things and not coming together. We're the ones keeping it separate, not God. So it's so important to come together as one before God and to allow ourselves to humble ourselves enough that when we see credentials out of Jerusalem, stamped and certified by the chief rabbis, and not one chief rabbi or two that are current, but also past ones. And Rabbi Sherkey's been doing this quite a few years. And the things that are one, God wants us to be one. He wants, the Jews, we all have our internal fights, and the Sephardim and the Ashkenazim and the Yemenite and the Moroccan, and sometimes we even call each other names. But let me tell you something. When we walk into a house of prayer, and it doesn't make any difference whose it is, in other words, Satmar or Chabad or Yemenite or whatever else, Sephardi, and we open the prayer book, we're all saying the exact same prayers. We're all doing the exact same thing. So we're one unit, using the same prayers, the same times of communication with God, men and women alike. And this is what God is looking from us. He wants us to have that unity. Now, I know there are people following other rabbis and being taught by other, that's fine. You want to do that, that's okay. That's whatever you want to do. It doesn't make you a part of that group, the one called Israel, because you have decided to go off a little bit different and not join it. Now, I will say this. There are two groups. I'm not going to mention the name of the other one, but there's an Ashkenazi group and there's a Sephardi group. Rabbi Sherkey's in the Sephardi group. And I've read everything from both of them, and I like the way the Sephardim teach it. It's just an easier way to learn. When you get your new book and you put it up there, yeah, Brit Shalom. Do you have the Divine Code there with you, Dan? You got it within reach? Okay. That's Ashkenazi. The other one is Sephardi. There are a few things they look a little bit different. They have different interpretations on. That's fine. But if you look at the size of the book, the thickness, this is what Rabbi Sherkey has put together. This is how easy it is, in quotation marks, to go forward with God. Now, the other book, hold it up for a minute so you can see how thick it is. If you try to live off that one book, it's just, look at that. Now, everything in it is good. Everything in it is good, except it's a lot more detailed and a lot more okay? As Noahides, you don't have to go that far if you don't want to.
Well, also Rabbi Sherkey's concise. It's the concise nature of it. And when you start reading a word or two or a line or a sentence, it's clear, and your own mind can unfurl it, able to unfurl it. And I think the way the rabbis transmitted, the way they transmit from one rabbi to another, the way that chain is preserved all the way back to Moses, there's a transmission. And I had one rabbi explain it to me one time as a bilateral affinity, which is a really fancy word, but that means bilateral, that too, affinity, meaning there's that connection, and it's about everything you've really been talking about this whole session.
Yeah. Look, why I can't tell you enough why I personally have connected with Rabbi Shirky and with all that. And believe me, at the same time I'm talking to him, the Ashkenazi side was talking to me, and all these plans, and let's do this together, and let's do that together. And when I personally weighed the two together, I try to be concise. I try not to confuse people with words and try to give it just plain English, so to speak. And that's how I try to teach, because that's how I like to be taught. And that's why I decided to take Torah for the Nations and become a part of the Noahide World Center. And it's the right choice. I don't even
and they gave you an endorsement certificate. Torah for the Nations has got an endorsement certificate that they stand behind, and that's renewed every year at a specific point.
I think the teaching certificates are, but I don't think that one had a date on it, but I don't remember. But you do have a commitment to them to not go astray. Anyway, why am I doing all this promo? We want to get more and more people involved. We want to, so that you can have effect on other people. Not go evangelize, not hand out pamphlets. Angela says she got the Brit Shalom yesterday. It's very easy to read. Yes. I do want to mention before we go that Richard Helton has asked for prayer for some health issues. So we ask you to maybe read a psalm or two in his merit for a good healing. And if you haven't heard the blessing from Rabbi Shirky yet, that I just blasted it all over the internet. So about any place you go, you're going to see it. Listen to it. Just take this 4 or 5 minutes and listen to it. The guy's an amazing, amazing teacher. And I'm so glad to be with him. And you brought it, Gloria said she brought it electronically and is online. Okay. Terry says, Micah, however you want to pronounce it, 4:2. And many nations shall go and say, come ye, let us go up to the mountain of Hashem, to the house of God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, the word of Hashem from Yerushalayim, from Jerusalem. And I so believed in this prophecy that I needed to track things down to make sure everything was on the bedrock of Jerusalem. Yeah. Yeah, the 7 Noahide laws from A.S. Noah are pretty good too. It's good to give out. Okay. We've been on for almost 2 hours, I guess. That's a long time, and I appreciate everybody being with us and all those people on Facebook and YouTube and World Noahide Center and B'nai Noach Connection with Israel and all that. I really appreciate your patience with me. I get a little long-winded sometimes. And I thank Dan for all the good work he does for us. Without him, we wouldn't have the prominence we have out there on Facebook. And if anybody has any questions or something they would like us to discuss on a Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, let me know. And let me know if you want a Wednesday night or Sunday night. Sunday night, I do it at 10 o'clock Eastern time. But maybe you're asleep before that. So I don't want to answer your question when you may not be watching or tuned in or can go with us. So we just really appreciate everything. And remember, when you wake up in the morning, to reconnect with God. Before you do anything during the day, let it go through your head. Let's see, is this what God would want me to do in this situation? Because he's the one in control. Don't let your ego try to control you. Let God control you. It's such a joyous trip. So I just want to say, God bless all you guys. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you for sharing tonight. You know, Rabbi Goldberg, he was even chatting, he's talking about doing a separate class with the Brit Shalom. We may come out with that soon, some nice class. I'm not sure how he wants to construct it, but I did do a broadcast back at December 24th. I did a broadcast for Noahides, and we may put something together in that regard. I'm still chatting with him. He wants to do it though, and I know that you guys are all getting copies that have ordered them already, and they're en route. I know there's some postal stalls going in and out of the U.S. right now because there's a ton of mail that is piled up in the U.S. In other words, they order so much online into the U.S. and that some of the mail places are so overstocked they can't get to it fast enough to get disseminated. And so that's why we got it in Canada pretty quick, because we're just a small nation, right? Big country, but smaller population. And so I'm glad to hear that Angelica got hers. And mine was only sent not that long ago, and it came very fast. I was just overjoyed. But this lesson, this class, we've had people on YouTube specifically tonight that, are all around the globe. You've got them from Indonesia, you got them from South America, people looking in, tuning in. And these are people that don't come once. They come several times, and they come often, and they put in positive feedback. And I always like to encourage. I did even give your Zoom link to one person there, and I let them know that you guys have people that moderate it in the Zoom room. But these are the whole idea of doing this YouTube, Facebook for the Noahide World Center is so that people get a connection. And if we can pass them on to a good honoring group like yourselves that are actually connecting with people and interacting, and people get to know other people and be with like-minded people and learn Torah, people inevitably will gravitate to those that they click and connect with. And like you said tonight, I love how you said about whether the Jewish people are Ashkenazi or Sephardi or wherever, they all coming together. And, that's just, that shines as a light. And I love how you talked about the dichotomy, especially how the Hebrew people have been, a little introverted, maybe over the years, self-protective and looking at it. And rightfully so, they haven't been treated perfect by the world. And it behooves everybody in the 70 nations in the world to just open your ears first. Don't make such rash judgments. Listen to what the sages have said for thousands of years and what the Torah transmission is all the way back to Moses. And when you click with those that are lovingly shining the light out of Israel, it just means that much to me. And more than that, it actually changes lives in a practical, applicable way. And I thank you for taking the time. And I just have always, loved the way Terry and Scotty, just embrace that B'nai Noach connection with Israel, and that's where my heart's been since I became a B'nai Noach. I don't want to do this on my own. It's not about me. And I love how you said that last week. It's not about us and where we stand. It's not just about a finish line faith of getting to the end of the line, where it's the hereafter is the only thing. We are here, and I love how you shared today about doing kindness. So, have you got any final, maybe closing words you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, one thing that I guess it was my fault that I didn't mention tonight. What are you talking about? You're talking about community. Everybody's looking for the Noahide community and expecting it to miraculously appear. You know what? God wants us to work for those things, even though he says, okay, this is what you need, this is what you got to do. He wants us to build them. He wants us to work at them. That's why there are Jewish communities in places all over the world. This is all going to happen. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. But you have to start working and doing to build the community. Mistakes are going to be made. People are going to come in and get angry and leave because their opinion isn't being listened to, all that. Okay, so what? You still have to keep going forward and working on building community. And that's what we try to do here at Torah for the Nations and at B'nai Noach Connection with Israel. And we gather you guys around. And just a quick thing, I know that Rabbi Goldberg's talking about starting a class in Brit Olam and Brit Shalom. But we also talked about it, Terry and Scotty and I have talked about it. And as soon as I'm waiting for my books to come, they haven't come yet. But I'm getting messages from companies. Well, hey, I know you ordered 120 days ago, but there's a problem in the world today. So I'm still waiting for things to come in. But we're going to do a very hands-on class on the prayer book and also on Brit Olam and Brit Shalom. Both we're going to do a hands-on class where we can just read it and discuss things and come to the understanding that God wants us all to have together as one, as a group. I love you guys very much. I thank you for everything you do. I thank you for being with us. And Sunday night at 10 p.m. Eastern time is the next time we'll be on the air. And of course, next week, same time, same place. And do remember that Hashem willing, yes.
Bleenetter? No,
Well,
you're
no.
gonna be
Yeah, I'm going to be here, whatever happens. But, well, no, I can't say that. I have,
Hashem willing. Yeah.
Hashem willing. God, men make plans and God's laughs. That's one of the, he's going to get done what he wants done. There are two different links you have to have. There's a link for the 10 o'clock Sunday night, which is a permanent link. And the link for this one, if you're coming into the Zoom room, which we publicize, that's a permanent link for this time every Wednesday.
Right.
Please
And
come
you
back
can always,
and see us.
You can always find that at Torah for the Nations Facebook page. Check out Torah for the Nations all across social media. You can find them out there, folks. So on that note, can we sign off? All right, folks, till next Wednesday, Hashem willing, we'll see you then.